funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, a removed cap draws questions and outrage. The state's Indian Affairs Secretary explores whether a 2021 state law should protect Indigenous graduates who want to walk with tribal regalia.
As a Native person myself, for me personally, it was scary, heartbreaking.
And fighting for firefighters. Our Land's Laura Paskus speaks with the widow of smoke jumper Tim Hart about the challenges wildland firefighters and their families face. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm executive producer Jeff Proctor. Ask around for a Mount Rushmore of Albuquerque icons, and Don Schrader's name probably makes most lists. As Andy Lyman put it in his April profile of Don for the paper, quote, "Anyone living in Albuquerque who doesn't at least recognize Don Schrader either hasn't been around long enough or isn't paying attention," close quote. In the second half of today's show, Andy sits down for a one-on-one with Don, a continuation of a conversation they've been having the past few months. They discuss Don's thoughts on his own mortality, why he forgives the person who struck him in a hit and run last summer, and his hopes for the future of the state's largest city. Later in today's show, Laura Paskus speaks with Michelle Hart about her husband, Tim, a smoke jumper who died while responding to a 2021 forest fire in Hidalgo County. Laura asks about the nature of the dangerous job and how the federal government has responded since Tim's death. That interview is coming up in less than 20 minutes, and we'll warn you now. Laura and Michelle talked about some hard truths wildland firefighters and their family members face, including suicide and alcohol abuse rates that far outpace the national averages. But first, we explore a controversy at a graduation ceremony celebrating the class of 2024 at Farmington High. It was a cap and gown day that caught the attention of national media after school officials forcibly removed the tribal regalia of one Lakota student as the ceremony began. As you can see in this video provided by the student's family, two faculty members approach graduate Genesis Whitebull. One of them takes the personalized graduation cap, adorned with beads and an eagle feather, before replacing it with a generic one. The video exploded on social media. Outrage hit Farmington High in waves as Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham spoke out against the action, and the Navajo Nation Council called it, quote, "belittling, humiliating, and demeaning to the student and her family," end quote. This week, Source New Mexico editor Sean Griswold sits with Secretary Gisette Monette to discuss her reaction to that viral video, the sacred significance of the student's hat, and what the state's Indian Affairs Department can do to help prevent future incidents from occurring.
Hi, Secretary Gisette Monette. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, broadly speaking, what was your reaction upon hearing the incident occurred at the Farmington High School graduation? And then when you saw the video, what were you thinking?
My initial reaction, quite honestly, was to determine what happened, to try to see what really happened and to not jump to a conclusion as to whether or not there was something like an ill intent or a bad response. That was my first initial reaction, was to think, okay, well, what happened? When I watched the video, though, finally, when I did really get a chance to watch the full video, as a Native person myself, for me personally, it was scary, heartbreaking kind of. I mean, to see somebody, to me, I think the big thing for me was to see somebody who maybe doesn't understand the importance of an eagle feather, and to just kind of grab it and hold it the way it was being held was kind of concerning. But also, you know, trying to understand from the school's perspective what they were doing. But I think, I think this is where that idea of conversation and communication between different agencies and partners in local communities really could have been helpful, because it's not okay to just grab an eagle feather like that and to take it off of somebody. And so that was a little heartbreaking for me personally.
And you have an eagle feather here. You have your item here. Would you describe what this is and tell us about the significance?
I do. So I have brought, this is my beaded graduation cap, and it still has my eagle feather attached to it, quite honestly.
And this is something similar to what Genesis Whipple was wearing at Farmington High School's graduation, right?
Correct. She had a really beautiful beaded cap with a plume, an eagle feather plume. This is the full eagle feather, but this, so I wore this on my law school graduation from UNM School of Law. And so eagle feathers, of course, are super significant to Indian people for us. And I believe Genesis's mother, Brenda, mentioned that when they touched her plume, it was harming a young warrior. Mm-hmm. And the way we look at our eagle feathers is these are our warriors. So you don't let your eagle feather touch the ground. You don't let it fall to the ground. If it does, that signifies that there's a fallen warrior, and you're supposed to do a ceremony in order to do it. Getting an eagle feather is an honoring. And so this is the only eagle feather I have. I got it when I graduated law school because it was a major accomplishment. It was a way to honor me and to honor the accomplishments that I did. The beaded caps, that I think is, there can be different reasons. Sometimes it's a way, like in particular for me, it's a way to show who I am. This is who I am. I'm a Native person, and I want people to know that I'm a Native person. It's the way we kind of adorn ourselves to recognize. Beadwork is, something that Indian country has been doing for years, for generations, and there can be several meanings. Sometimes the designs can have specific meanings to the local community, to the tribe or nation that that person is from. Mine has little feathers in it, but you can also, traditionally, when you're doing beadwork, you would be saying prayers for people. There would be prayers incorporated in. So this isn't just, a cap that's just, this looks pretty. It's actually a cap that is really showing that there's prayers that have gone into it. We are honoring you. It's an honor to be able to wear this. We're recognizing your accomplishments. So having a beaded cap with a plume or an eagle feather attached to it is all significant, because it really shows that this family has recognized this individual and the accomplishments that they have made.
Yeah, and that's a very significant part to mention here, because some of the confusion in this and even the conversation that's gotten lost is that she decorated her cap. It was in violation of the policy by the school district, but it's not a decoration. It's not an adornment, an aesthetic. And her mom and Genesis have said as much in the similar way that as you've described. Now, they are from a different nation. They're from Standing Rock, Lakota Standing Rock, excuse me. But they're and the people in New Mexico are also different. And you're also from a different tribal community as well, too, correct? Correct. But some of this stuff all kind of connects in a way. And what we're seeing in Genesis' case, regardless of how the viewpoints of it's a decoration or not, they don't view it that way. That's not what this is. They carry it with the seriousness as you do with yours, as you described. Now, there's a law in New Mexico that was designed in order to protect students to practice their cultural beliefs and traditions, and to prevent local school districts from enacting any policies that would harm those students' cultural practices and beliefs. It's similar to Federal Crown Act legislation and rooted in that. Now, Arizona has a similar law passed as well, but that one actually was rooted specifically for indigenous students, for people who are enrolled members of Native American communities, and has language specific to that, whereas New Mexico's is a little bit ambiguous, a little bit broad, excuse me. Can you tell me more about New Mexico's version of the law and some of those issues about why it is broad and why that has become an issue regarding this stuff with Genesis Whipple?
Sure. So I believe you're referring to Senate Bill 80, yeah. And Senate Bill 80 was passed. And so when
that was passed in 2021, excuse me.
Correct.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. And so it was passed in 2021. And so when I reviewed Senate Bill 80, I looked at it, and I think, and we've discussed it in our office internally too, is it looks like there could be some protection perhaps for students in this incident and related to it. And as I watched one of the news outlets, Senator Pope, who was one of the sponsors of the bills, did state that this type of incident was one of the thoughts that they were hoping, or one of the types of incidents they were hoping to prevent in passing this legislation. But that said, I think there could be there's some opportunity, I guess, to still determine whether or not this law is really the most applicable here. So you mentioned Arizona's law. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to read that, but based on what you've stated, it sounds like it's very specific to what they were hoping to accomplish. Senate Bill 80, in what I've read, isn't that specific, but it does talk about headdresses, and it does talk about hair and hairstyles and cultural things that students could wear and that they shouldn't be disciplined for it and such. So, here our governor has stated that this incident doesn't reflect New Mexico's commitment to our diversity in our state, and that she hopes that the school district looks at that. And so, as far as Senate Bill 80, it doesn't sound like it's maybe written the same as Arizona's. Like I said, I haven't had the opportunity to read that, unfortunately.
Well, that's okay, but I guess also I'm curious about when it comes to New Mexico's version of the law, is there an avenue now that, since there is an established version with Senate Bill 80, does that need to be amended to add more specific language to help prevent issues from this? Because ultimately, it is still in the hands of the local school district to make the policy. The governor cannot go into Farmington and say, this is not allowed. And it's unclear if Senate Bill 80 would allow the governor's office or administration to do so. But is there action that needs to be done on the legislative side to amend Senate Bill 80 to be more specific?
It's possible. It's possible that there needs to be an amendment, right? We're seeing, again, as I stated, at least from Senator Pope's perspective, this should have been protected, but clearly there's been an ambiguity or there's been a misunderstanding about how that applies in this situation. And so I think if there's an opportunity to amend it because they want to clean up that ambiguity, then that could be possible. That might be a step. Or it might be that they want to draft a whole new legislation that's more specific. So I think there are opportunities and things to look at potentially, but I can't say, we're not in my office right now working on drafting anything. Yeah. But I think, if the constituents and the legislators and the governor's office in particular, kind of tells us, hey, this is something that we think needs to be done, then I think at our office at IAD, we're of course interested in looking into that and helping in any way that we can.
Okay, great. And that's interesting to know that IAD is interested in working on this. And there's actually some people nearby who work with IAD that like First Nation or Navajo Nation First Lady Jasmine Blackwater Nygren, for instance. Who was one of the first elected, or leaders actually, not elected, excuse me, but one of the first leaders to discuss the issue in Farmington. And one of her original posts kind of made this thing go really viral, and she's been outspoken about it, spoken to the family, but was also active as a lawmaker in Arizona when they passed their version of a law that's supposed to prevent things like this happening. Now, one of the things I do want to ask about this is that there's a quote when speaking with Blackwater Nygren off camera. She says, in Arizona, we were very clear about what we were doing, very clear about who we were trying to cover in the act itself. And this is specific to the law they passed. And it was very delineated, like you had to be enrolled or eligible to be enrolled in a tribe. There's that very clear distinction. And so that's what we paralleled in the Arizona law. We wanted this very specific language in the bill versus the bill in New Mexico, which is very broad. Do you have any reaction to that comment from the First Lady, and also anything that could do to help work with her to help potentially make New Mexico's law better?
I think she's clearly got some experience in working on that legislation. I think at IAD we would be happy to hear her perspective and hear some of what they worked through and the discussions they had on the Arizona side to see. I think if there's ways to improve, we're happy to try to find ways to improve. Like I said, as our governor has stated, our governor recognizes this is not New Mexico's commitment to the diversity and tribal communities in our state. And so we can look at ways that we can do better. And I think that, if there's a push, or if constituents and tribal nations and Indian people in New Mexico are saying, hey, maybe we want to see a change, then I think this is an opportunity to see how we can do better.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we're all wondering at this moment too, is the dynamic of the border town situation here as well is always an opportunity that we're working to do better on, and how we build better relationships with the tribal communities and the border communities like a Farmington that are surrounding them. Can you discuss about what it is you would like to see in your role as IAD to help do better in building those relationships and trust between the border towns and the tribal communities that exist around them.
Farmington Public Schools made a couple of statements where they apologized for the actions taken and the way in which it was done. In my view, I think that's really important. I think that was a really great step. I'm glad that they did that. I think it's important to acknowledge, hey, we could have done better here, or we made a misstep. Okay, what can we do? And I think, and can't remember right off the top of my head exactly what they said, but I believe they said, you know, we're happy to continue to have conversations about how we can do better in the future. And I think that's a big part of it for local communities and for governments, tribal governments, state governments to really kind of sit down and have these conversations. So in the state of New Mexico, we have the State Tribal Collaboration Act. It really applies to state agencies and tribal governments, and having clear collaboration and communication between the state agencies and the tribes and such. But I think, you know, local governments can also have those communications and collaborations, in particular with the nation's pueblos and tribes that surround them, but with Indian people in general, and say, how do we do better? And I think this is an opportunity for all of these parties to come together and say, okay, what do we need to do to best look towards the goal of New Mexico and our commitment to our diversity and our people in New Mexico, and how do we best serve our people?
Okay. It's graduation season still. We're all going to them. We're all seeing different graduations. And in fact, there are some graduations where the cultural expression is celebrated, encouraged. Have you been to any graduations like that? And can you describe sort of what it's like when you see cultural expression, not just non-native and non-native?
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to attend the Navajo Prep School graduation in Farmington this past weekend, and it was gorgeous. It was a great, the entire graduation ceremony was gorgeous in general, but a lot of the students had on their traditional regalia. A lot of their hats were adorned with beadwork or various other things. And so it was gorgeous. It was great. It's so beautiful to see. Personally, my son is graduating on Friday, tomorrow morning.
Last week.
Tomorrow, Friday, yes.
Friday, yeah, okay.
Friday. So yeah, he's graduating on Friday from a public school in Albuquerque, and you know, there's a policy to not do anything to hats. When my oldest daughter graduated during COVID. And so she didn't get a graduation, but we had reached out to the school system to see if we would be able to bead the cap. And we went through a couple channels, and we did actually. I think I still have the email from one of the school personnel who had said, we think that will be okay. But for my son, who's graduating tomorrow, I asked him, do you want me to bead your cap? We can try it. But his response was, no, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to push the envelope.
Did you watch the video of Genesis Whitepool?
You know what? I don't know, actually. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess I haven't had time to sit down with my kids to look at it.
And when he tells you he doesn't want to get in trouble for expressing his cultural identity or expressing his culture, what's your view and your thoughts on that?
I think his thing is, my son he doesn't want to stand out in any kind of way. So I think if it were something that for sure lots of other Native students or other students were able to express themselves through their caps, he would do that. But I think of course, you know, being a student, I think personally too, being a student out of 300 students and being the only one would be a little intimidating too. And I think that's, you know, kind of his perspective. So that's fine. You know, that's fine. But
different vibes too with graduations that are very uniformed and right.
Like I said, my oldest daughter was like, yeah, I'd like a beaded cap. Mm-hmm. And so we asked, and we tried to see if we could do that. My son's kind of like, no, that's okay. I don't want to stand out.
And these are conversations Native people are having with all their graduates right now, and will probably happen for the next several years. So I really do thank you for helping us push this conversation a little bit further. We look forward to seeing what the state's response will be over the next several months, and really do appreciate you for taking the time to talk with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I love to live simply, and I want to die simply. I built my own coffin out of half-inch plywood 6 years ago for about 60 bucks. And to me, it's an absolute crime that so many people in this country spend many thousands of dollars on funerals when millions of desperately poor children all over the world sleep on the ground hungry.
On May 24th, 3 years ago, a campfire blew up along the U.S.-Mexico border in Hidalgo County. It was burning on the Diamond A Ranch, private land in the rugged Animas Mountains. For more than 2 decades, people had let fires burn there, but in 2021, the strategy was for full suppression. More than 2 seasons had passed without monsoon rains. It was hot and it was windy. With the closest engine 7 hours away, smoke jumpers were ordered to the fire, even though one captain warned, "We don't jump the boot heel. It's a pile of rocks and there are weird winds coming off the Animas Mountains. We had a bad experience last time we jumped this." So New Mexico's boot heel doesn't have many roads. Security is an issue and communication is spotty for cell phones and emergency radios. And even en route to the fire, crews couldn't use their satellite phones because they didn't have new SIM cards. One of the 8 smoke jumpers sent to the fire was Tim Hart, a 6-year veteran of the West Yellowstone Jump Base. As hot winds radiated off the sun-baked desert floor, Tim was the 6th jumper out of the plane. About 200 feet above the ground, his canopy sped up, and according to one of the jumpers, came out of the air super fast, like he got caught up in a burble. Tim landed on the side of a drainage and rocks the size of garbage pails, according to the accident report. He was unconscious when his fellow jumpers ran to him, and it was more than 2 hours until he arrived by air ambulance at the hospital in El Paso, where he died from his injuries 9 days later. Now, approaching the 3rd anniversary of Tim's death, I spoke with his wife, Michelle Hart. We talked about Tim and about the challenges wildland firefighters and their families face. Michelle Hart, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura.
So I wanted to start with just who was Tim Hart? Who was he to you, to his family?
So Tim was my husband. We were married in 2019 and had a wonderful 1.5 years of marriage together before his accident. I get asked that question a lot about who he was as a person, and I honestly really struggle to define that because, like any person, I think sitting in my shoes, it's impossible to encapsulate who a person is in a few words. But he, as much as I could try, he was an amazing man. He loved his job, being a firefighter. It was his entire career. He put everything into it. He was extremely smart. He had a master's degree. I mean, he was extremely educated, but his passion for his job really drove a lot of what he did. He was really funny. He loved a good practical joke. He loved Halloween and dressing up for, theme parties and things like that. He didn't take life seriously, except for in his job, but he added so much color to my life and his friends' lives. And I mean, it's the little things, like the things, again, that are really difficult to describe, but just every day with him was a new journey. He just made me laugh all the time, and he was quiet until you got to know him. But then he had a lot to say. So he's an enigma of a person. I don't, and again, I know a lot of people would probably say this about someone who they love too, but there's just no one else like him in the world, and there will never be another one of him. And it is a huge loss to myself, his friends, his family, to his coworkers, that he's no longer here to bring that joy and that color to our lives.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking about him that way. It's nice to feel like we can know a little bit who he was. While Tim was a wildland firefighter and a smoke jumper, I was wondering if you could talk about what challenges he faced, his colleagues faced, and that the family members of wildland firefighters face when they're deployed or when they come home even?
Oh, yeah, that is a really heavy question because there are a lot of things in that list. With my experience with Tim, and I still have a lot of friends that are in fire as well, and so these problems continue for them, I know. But from my perspective, it was extremely hard for me having my partner be gone for 6-7 months out of the year, gone on assignment, not being able to talk to them, sometimes for weeks on end, constantly living in fear that something is going to happen. And unfortunately, that fear became a reality for me and for the people who loved him. But that's a reality also that a lot of other families face every single year. There are deaths every single year. The mental stress for the firefighter coming home in the off season, going from an adrenaline fueled summer season, watching close calls happen, destruction, havoc, and then trying to come back in the off season and be basically laid off, not having a lot to do, trying to recalibrate themselves into home life and reset with their families. That was really tough for Tim and I, both when he would leave, getting used to the fact that we're not together, but then also him coming home. And, I'm used to taking care of the house and making sure things are done. And now there's another person there. So it's a recalibration back into normal life. And then, the mental health is a really big piece of that, that I think is really not talked about enough. And obviously not our situation, but a lot of people have had, close friends that have died from suicide in the community. And it's just a really big stressor for them. You also have medical conditions. Tim went through workers' comp multiple times with different injuries that he sustained, and navigating that process and rehabilitating yourself. He had an ATV rollover on a fire where he was in the hospital. He had a shoulder injury. The year before his accident, there were several other folks at his base in West Yellowstone that had serious life-threatening injuries from their job. And so just the physical toll, not to mention long-term, you worry about the smoke inhalation and the carcinogens. And I think there's just so much stress around all of that. And I haven't even touched on the financial piece. They don't make a lot of money. And for us, I worked as well, so that wasn't as big of a stressor for us. And I'm grateful that, my job helped us afford a place to live. But for a lot of families, that's not the case. And it can create an enormous stress financially, and a lot of concern there too. So I know I'm just kind of talking about all these things, but when you ask that question, there is just so much that goes into that answer. It's not one thing, it's multiple things that, the spouses and the people who love the people in these jobs have to think about and worry about for their partners and for themselves. And, I know that Grassroots Wildland Firefighters have done an amazing job of surveying partners. And, one of the statistics I find really interesting that they said is that around 50% of their respondents said that they have considered leaving their partner because of the stress of the job. That is a massive number of people who really are asking themselves, is this the life that I want to have? And what does that mean then for those people, the firefighters that are going out there, worrying also about their relationship?
Yeah, that same survey from Grassroots Wildland Firefighters, that 2021 survey, the numbers are crazy. 77% surveyed experienced a near miss that could have killed them. 57% reported binge drinking in the past month. That's almost twice the national average. 78% have mental health issues directly caused or worsened by their work. And 23% tested positive for PTSD. It sounds like these numbers resonate with you and the people you know.
Absolutely. It's weird to see them on paper because it feels obvious, but then also terrifying when you see that really is the way that this community is, and that what they have to live through all of the time.
Yeah. So and we can not talk about this if you don't want to, but Tim died in 2021, but you have continued to still see bills pop up, and the U.S. Forest Service, as I understand, pays those bills. But what is it like for you 3 years later to still see these come in the mail to you?
Yeah, the entire process is extremely traumatic. I think naively, I thought that the bureaucratic part of it would wrap up pretty quickly, but it didn't. It dragged out for a long time. And that's not necessarily the Forest Service, their fault. I mean, they were a wonderful partner in helping me make sure that things were getting paid and helping me as much as they could. But when you're dealing with a death of a federal employee, it just extends, the bureaucracy extends into multiple other agencies. And, some of that just takes a really long time to close out. And it was really hard. Some of the things that I felt like were unnecessary. And again, it's all part of bureaucracy, but for instance, his life insurance, like I was getting letters from directly from a different agency about asking me to submit records and articles and medical records about his death so that they could prove that it was a work accident, even though, he had been qualified as that. So just a lot of that felt really unnecessary to me. And it was very traumatic to be asked to send over the coroner's report and have to pull all of that information together myself. And then, the bills, and again, not the government's fault at all, but the hospital where he stayed, not sure what happened there, but I was getting medical bills for years afterwards. In fact, I think a month ago, I got another overdue bill from the hospital. And, since then, my caseworker has retired for the Forest Service. So honestly, I just sit it on my desk and I'm like, well, I guess they can try to take me to collections because, Tim doesn't have any credit or doesn't matter anymore. So I'll just let it sit there. But it is traumatic to come and see that, a bill for something to do with like a brain scanner or a neurologist, and, just putting myself back in that position of being down there with him and going through that is traumatic. And you just never know. Every time I open the mailbox, there's a fear that I'm going to see something else in there that's going to kind of bring me back. And so it's something that you just never can get away from. And that is the hard part. I think the Forest Service does the best job that they can. I just think that the process itself does not make it easy for the people that are left behind.
Yeah. So in 2021, senators and representatives did introduce the Tim Hart Wildland Firefighter Classification and Pay Parity Act. Whatever happened with that?
Well, it is still sitting there on the books. It's been introduced the last few years. So, that bill, I think, really encompasses everything that firefighters really want to see. It covers everything from mental and physical health to pay parity to retirement, education, all of that. And so it's kind of a wish list of everything that they want. And we want to see all of those things come into fruition. What we have seen after the initial introduction of that is a lot more visibility on these issues. And so I think what this has done, even though it has not passed, and again, we still very much would like to see it pass, but it has brought to light a lot of these issues into DC and into our representative and senators' hands. And what it's allowed to is for them to come in and take bite-sized pieces out of it and repackage them into ways that, they like to see, or taking one piece out here and one piece out here, putting it in a different bill over here. And what we've seen is a lot of what was in Tim's Act is coming to fruition. There are changes to the physical health piece with presumptive care. We're seeing, we saw the incentives that were passed, the $20,000 increases that now we're trying to make permanent through the two bills that are out there right now, the Paycheck Protection Act. And there's a Retirement Fairness Act that's also coming out on temporary employees being able to buy into their retirement from their temporary years of service. And all of those things, those ideas originated in Tim's Act. And so although it as a whole package has not been promulgated, we are seeing significant improvements on certain pieces of those moving forward in their own ways. And we have a lot of work to do, but the wheels the wheels of the legislature grind slowly. And it's a fight that there are a lot of people that are in it for the long haul. And so I definitely see that, Tim is continuing to make a difference through bringing that level of awareness. And I'm so excited to see other people see these as good ideas that they can carry forward and really make lasting changes for people.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that it is sort of parts are coming out in different ways. All of us across the nation rely on wildland firefighters, but I feel like we often don't see them. Like maybe we see them come in through our communities, people put the signs up and that sort of thing, but don't see them as individuals or people with families. What do you wish everyone knew and maybe could do better for our wildland firefighters?
I think it's a really good point that they're hidden figures. They're the hidden heroes of our country, and they don't ask for anything. They are the most selfless people. I think the thing that I would want everyone to hear about and to know and understand is if the struggles that we're talking about that they have there. And again, they don't talk about them. They don't complain about them. And so I think it's up to the public, the people who use their services, to be the ones to help advocate for them, to make sure that they're taken care of. This workforce is not unlike the military. They're defending our country. They die for our country. They give time away from their loved ones. They suffer for it. And it is imperative and is upon the American public to be grateful for that, understand it, and ask for reform. Ask for them to be treated like we do our military service members, like we do to our emergency responders, and ensure that they're protected and that they are given the benefits and ability to recuperate from being in these traumatic events. And we're asking them to do this for their entire career again and again. So I just think that we all need to educate ourselves better and ask questions to them, like, what is this like for you? And certainly if you know a wildland firefighter, please ask them how they're doing, especially in their time off, because I guarantee that they have seen some things and have been through a lot, and I'm sure they could use somebody to talk to. And so I just encourage you to have those conversations.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I'm really sorry for your loss, and I appreciate what Tim did and all of his colleagues. And I appreciate you talking with us and, being an advocate for the people you care about. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Laura.
This isn't the first time we've covered the challenges wildland firefighters face or the solutions they seek. Visit nmpbs.org/ourland to see that past coverage.
Thanks to Laura Paskus and Michelle Hart for that conversation. Last May, Don Schrader was struck by a car, an incident that brought lots of local headlines and perhaps reminded some folks that Don is still very much around. The driver was never found, and Don has been recovering for almost exactly a year now. Although most days he can still be found shirtless, walking the streets of Albuquerque with his cart of essentials, he has opened up to the idea of an occasional car ride, an option the 78-year-old otherwise would have never considered. It's been a year of change for Don, and the paper's Andy Lyman has been working on documenting it. In April, Andy published a profile of Don as he considers death one of life's only guarantees. Now, this week, Andy sits down with Don to look ahead at Albuquerque's future and his hopes for a city that he has become synonymous with.
Don, thanks so much for coming in and speaking with me today.
I'm glad to be here, Andy.
You and I have spoken at length over the past several weeks about your life and some of your stories. And I think viewers can go read a little bit more of that at the story I wrote in the paper, and they can also go find your public access show. So today I'd like to just narrow the focus a little bit more than what we've been talking about. Maybe if we can think of this as a time capsule for folks to come back and view some years down the road. In particular, I want to zero in a little bit on your how your perspective might have changed as you contemplate the end of life.
Well, because of the hit and run 1 year ago, I'm even more aware of how our lives can change in an instant, and that tomorrow is not guaranteed to anyone on earth, whether you're 7 years old, 27, 97, or 78, which I am. 6 years ago, this summer, I bought a plot at the San Jose de Armijo Cemetery on the west side, a beautiful dirt cemetery. I say, why waste water in a desert on dead bodies? And also, San Jose de Armijo, the graves are much cheaper than the big grass cemeteries. No vault, no liner required, as they require. I love to live simply, and I want to die simply. I built my own coffin out of half-inch plywood 6 years ago for about $60. And to me, it's an absolute crime that so many people in this country spend many thousands of dollars on funerals, coffins, flowers, when millions of desperately poor children all over the world sleep on the ground, hungry, sick. It's evil to waste money like that.
Something you and I have talked about before, Don, is your shift in views on what I think you told me before. You used to want a big funeral,
you're
right?
You're right.
What shifted in that?
Well, I started to see I won't be there to enjoy it. So why a big funeral? Although I realize a funeral is for the living, but I love to have people at so many community events greet me warmly with hugs and on the street with honks and smiles and sometimes a sexy yell. And but I won't be there to enjoy it. So I prefer while I'm living. And so yeah.
You had mentioned earlier the hit and run. Some folks might already know you were hit by a car last May, just about exactly a year ago at this point. The driver fled the scene. Still don't know who it was, but can you share with us how you're recovering, how the last year of recovery has gone for you, and how you're feeling these days?
Well, I'm so glad to be alive. Many victims of hit and run are killed on the spot, and I'm so glad to be able to walk as well as I do, and to dance. 2 Sundays recently, I danced at community events. Not quite as freely as I used to, but I dance. And so I just hope that whoever it was, I don't know if the person was on meth or drunk or coming from a vicious family fight. I don't know if the person thought I was homeless because of my cart that I pull, and he said, oh, here's a loser, or he or she, I don't know the driver, man or woman, and or targeted me because of what I stand for and have stood for decades, as far as being openly gay and anti-war in this war-addicted city. I don't know. And I just hope that whoever it was someday changes to live a better life.
Physically speaking, how have you been recovering? Are you still moving around a lot?
Oh yes. Many days I walk miles to go where I want to go. Before the hit and run, I had ridden in no car for 22 years. And since the hit and run, sometimes, especially immediately after coming home from the hospital, I have accepted rides in cars. But I mostly walk, and take the city bus, and pull my cart that has extra clothes or food. Like yesterday at El Super, I bought over 20 pounds of apples. I love apples. And I'm a raw foods vegan. Eat no meat, no dairy, no junk food, no booze, no processed foods, no, none of that. And some lessons from the hit and run. One is, for me, never, and for anybody, never to cross a busy, the street wasn't busy except for I saw this driver coming fast way up yonder, and but never to take a chance on crossing a street. I was foolish, and I regret it, of course. And secondly, to forgive the driver, even though I don't know who it was, and to forgive myself for foolishly crossing. And thirdly, I'm so glad that I pursued health for many, many years before, and that has helped me make a good recovery. I'm not back to what I was, probably never will be, but maybe 85%.
Yeah, and you're walking without a walker now.
Yes. I do carry a cane with me, just in case of almost falling. I did fall some weeks ago, and 5 men stopped. One man who had his car took me home in the car, and and to anyone watching today, I love personal questions. I treasure heart-to-heart conversations, and if you see me wherever in town and you want to talk with me and you have the time, please do.
Given that your religious upbringing and you're shunning religion, where do you find that forgiveness to forgive the driver that hit you, or anybody in your life? Where do you find the power to forgive?
Thank you. Very good question. See, I'm so totally convinced that apart from the multitude of people who have taught me, who have loved me, who have inspired me, and put in the crucible of pressures and upbringings that so many people have, whether it be a Donald Trump or an Adolf Hitler, I could have done the same evil. And I'm so convinced of that. For example, Hitler had a terrible childhood. His father was extremely abusive. And then when crowds swallowed his racist lies and his hateful rhetoric, that just fanned the flames of his rage and his insanity. And the same, to some degree, with Trump. As I understand, in his early childhood, his mother was not there, and I think she had some kind of sickness. And so his father just pumped into him, worship money, worship power, do whatever you can get away with, no matter who you screw over. Well, and now, sadly, millions of people in this country swallow his, I just read the other day, he spoke over 30,000 lies during his 4 years in office. And so when many evangelicals and business people and fan the flames of his evil rantings, it just makes it worse.
Sort of to wrap things up, you've been in this city for
54 years ago next month.
okay, so you've seen a lot of changes in the city. You've walked these streets many times.
Yep.
You've seen obviously issues with the police department,
Oh, yeah.
violence against in the hands of APD. You've seen plenty of addiction and homelessness.
That's right.
What is Don Schrader's prayer for the city to change, to be better?
Well, number one, I damn Sandia Weapons Lab and Kirtland Air Force Base, where daily, for decades, many people, and especially at Sandia Weapons Lab, highly educated people, spend their brains and their time, their careers, preparing mass murder for millions all over the world. You know, Gandhi said, when Gandhi was asked what worried him the most, he replied, the hardness of heart of the educated. And so true, so true. And so I wish that Albuquerque would be known not for the Auschwitz in the making on the southeast side, Sandia Weapons Lab, but for peace and standing against war. I have paid no federal income tax for 45 years. I refuse to pay for this government to murder millions, as it done in many, many nations under both Republican and Democrat president. I want also the homeless people to have, if they want a simple, small place to live, and we'll take care of it, to have a place. It's a crime against humanity, not just in Albuquerque, but across the country, that billions are spent on war preparations, billions sent to Israel to mass murder tens of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza, and not enough money to help the homeless. I mean, it's just insanity. And also, I would like Albuquerque to be known for sober living. New Mexico has the highest rate of deaths from booze of all 50 states, twice the national average. And I call upon community leaders, religious leaders, to take a public, to make a public promise, pledge, to drink no booze for the rest of their lives. I drink no booze, none, zero. Dear friends of mine whose lives were devastated by booze and cut short. It's just one of my closest friends, well, my closest friend now, his 42-year-old daughter is just a wreck from booze and emotional illness. I've seen it, it's just awful. And so I want Albuquerque to be seen as a place where immigrants remain welcome despite some action from city councilors, and where they really are appreciated as our sisters and brothers, many of them fleeing horrendous conditions in countries where the United States has been a villain. And so those are
Okay.
some of my deep desires.
Well, Don, I thank you so much for coming in. This has been a great talk, and I know you and I will keep these conversations going on the phone, and I'll come see you. And but yeah, thank you so much for coming in, and hopefully you'll gain some new followers when you're walking down the street, and they'll come ask you some personal
please.
questions.
Speak to me if you want to.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Andy, and the station.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by the viewers like you.